You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Nancy Red. Danielle Maytive and her husband Alexander didn't think they were doing anything out of the ordinary when they let their children, aged 10 and 6, walk home alone from a nearby park. But the Maytive family is now under investigation by Child Protective Services for potentially neglecting their kids. Are communities becoming overprotective? Joining me now to discuss free-range parenting, we have Danielle Maytive herself, along with Julie Gunlock, author of From Cupcakes to Chemicals and a Mother of Three, Lisa LeGroux, founder of the Oakland County Moms blog and mother of two, and Samantha Kemp Jackson, a parenting writer and mother of four. Thank you all so much for joining. Danielle, I have to start with you because your story has gone not just nationwide, but global. Are you surprised that your experience has had such a wide impact?
I'm completely floored. We never expected that sending our children to the park would either be considered a crime or considered international news.
All right, so we have a comment here from Jose, who's watching. He says, as a Generation X latchkey kid, I was very independent and walked everywhere. I loved it. I was able to explore and learn how to be self-sufficient. Kids today are missing out, just my opinion. Well, your kids aren't missing out, but they're also not looking at, the community's not looking at them as role models, per se. This is not the first time Child Protective Services has been called on you.
Right. First time was actually at the end of October. We dropped our kids off just on the way home from the bus stop. Didn't think anything of it. They played at the park. They came home in time for dinner. Nothing horrible happened. But a few days later, CPS showed up telling us that we shouldn't have done that.
All right,
we're not allowed to do that.
So what's going on? Because it's not like the cops are just walking by and noticing, hey, these kids look like they've been left alone. People in the community, adults in the community are actually calling CPS on you.
Right. So the first time we think it was a neighbor because when the CPS person came to the house, she knew my son's name and where we lived. And the second time it was somebody probably driving by as the kids were walking home and they called the police.
So we have a comment here from Shannon. I'm so offended in the lack of the community support the Maytive family has been experiencing in enabling their children's independence. As a mother of a toddler, I also hope to give my child independence on his own timeline, not the timeline dictated by so-called helicopter parents. In the case where people are calling the police and having Child Protective Services trail you to see if you are neglectful parents, do you think it's because they really care about the state of your kids, or do you think they just really don't believe in your parenting style?
I mean, I'd like to think that they actually care about the kids. I don't mind that somebody would walk up to the kids and say, are you okay? Are you lost? Or even if a police officer did that, that's fine with me. We want people to look out for each other's kids. It's the idea that it then becomes a crime. So I think people are genuinely concerned because there are no other kids. To them, this looks odd. They forgot that this is how they grew up.
Right. When it's funny that concern for children no longer means talking to the kid and saying, hey, are you okay? It means calling the cops. Are you surprised if people are expressing concern that it is through a third party, a third party that is an authority?
Absolutely. And that's what's so upsetting is what happened to just talking to the kids or talking to us. Yeah. Instead, it's a crime. It's a criminal matter.
So what's the latest with your case? You're still expecting another visit to your home from CPS to ensure you have a safe place for your children to live, right?
Well, we've said that we're invoking our Fourth Amendment rights and they can't come into our house without a warrant. But we do have a meeting with them right now scheduled for Monday afternoon, next Monday.
Have you involved legal counsel?
We've talked to legal counsel because we need to understand our rights. The thing that's so frightening is that the people at CPS have the power to do exactly what they're threatening to do. They do have the power to take children away with actually very little evidence, and that's what's so scary. So we definitely have spoken to lawyers about it.
What is the state of your household? Do your kids know what's happening?
Well, they can't really miss it because we keep having, television crews coming through. To them, they're taking it all in stride. I mean, we're the ones who can't sleep. To the kids, it's, the scary part was actually when the CPS officers came. My daughter had nightmares about the police taking her daddy away. But at this point, I think they feel safe because we're speaking out and because we're standing up for our family.
How do you talk to them about this? They felt safe walking to the park by themselves, enjoying a semblance of independence, and now they're having nightmares, ironically, because of the people who were put in the position to protect.
And that's what's really sad about this, is that I don't want my children to be afraid of the authorities that are there to help them. I don't want them to think that if a police officer comes up to them, it's because they've done something wrong, or, oh no, mommy and daddy are going to be in trouble. But it is really upsetting because CPS is there for a really good reason, to help abused and neglected children. And my children are neither. And by focusing on my kids, they're ignoring kids who really need them.
All right, I want to open up this conversation because this subject reaches so many individuals. We have a comment here from Justice Holmes. We've gone way too far in protecting children. Parents have been arrested for child neglect for allowing siblings to babysit. And we have so many news stories along this line. But according to a poll conducted by Reason this summer, a majority of Americans say government should require supervision of kids at public parks. 83% say there should be a law requiring the supervision of kids 6 and younger. 72% say there should be a law requiring the supervision of kids 9 and younger. And 43% say the law should require the supervision of kids 12 and younger. Panel, I want all of your opinions, but Danielle, what do you think of the fact that the vast majority of Americans think that what you did should be illegal?
I find it really upsetting, and I think it's really sad because, of course, I'm guessing that almost all of the people who answered those polls were allowed to do what they're talking about outlawing. And honestly, if anything comes out of this, if something good comes out of this, it would be to see those numbers change, to see that people remember. It's really just about waking up and remembering that this is how we were raised. This isn't some crazy new idea. It's actually a really old idea.
All right, Lisa, I want to bring you into this conversation. You're a mother of 2. What's your take on this?
I have so much sympathy for Danielle. I mean,
thank you.
And I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's got to be horribly terrifying. Yes, we did this all as children, and there is nothing wrong with this. And I agree. The Child Protective Services are wasting precious time doing their work with something that's not a crime. I mean, what your children did was a great learning experience, great steps for them to become independent and grow up as young adults. And I commend you for what you did. And again, I feel so much sympathy for your situation.
All right, Lisa, your kids are 10 and 12.
Yes.
How much independence do you afford them?
You know, we did start probably about last summer encouraging them to get on their bikes and go places without us because they weren't used to it. I wish we had started at a younger age, but we had just gotten them their cell phones and began to get comfortable with the concept. So we would have them walk to places that were less than a mile away, like a playground. We have dropped them off at the theater, which is about a half a mile away, and we pick them up when it's done. And they take their cell phones with them all the time. And I'm comfortable with it. Yeah, it doesn't mean we don't worry, but it just means that we understand that this is a part of life.
Samantha, weigh in here. What's your take?
Well, my take is that you know, I'm on board with feeling for Danielle because I think that we've just gotten a little bit crazy in terms of this helicopter parenting and this over parenting of our children. We as parents are obliged to teach our kids to be independent, to give them life skills, to let them learn that they can take care of themselves, because if we don't do that, then they're not going to bode well as adults because we're not always going to be there to protect them. I think teaching them the skills to know their environment, know their surroundings, who's around them, how to take care of themselves, what to do in an emergency are really, really important life skills. And, you know, as I was, saying earlier to the producer, I mean, I grew up in the 70s. I was running around by myself all the time. All summer we were by ourselves, me, my friends, sometimes alone, sometimes with friends. My parents would say, go out and play and come back at dinner time. And that was just the standard. It was the norm. And having to check in every 2 minutes was the exception. And let me just go on to say as well, there were no cell phones, there was no internet, there was no Google, and I was just fine. And further to that, I don't think that human nature has changed that much in 20 or 30 years. We don't evolve that quickly. And I think people are still the same. There's still dangers out there for sure. And kids definitely have to be aware of their environment and how to take care of themselves. But I really think that this hyper vigilance around parenting has gotten to a point where, kids are just afraid. And it's really a shame because they're missing a lot of their childhood.
Julie, weigh in here because this is a case of do as I say, not as I did. Dale Leonard, he says, I was doing this with my son back in the late 80s, letting them have independence. This crap is getting way out of hand. But then we have Tarana. Are there more crazy people out there now than there was 20 years ago? This is part of the problem, okay?
No,
Yeah, I think what's really important to also keep in mind is crime is down. You know, whether we're talking about arson or rape or abductions or murder, crime is down across the board. So people are safer. And so what's odd for a lot of people who practice the free range parenting style, which I do, is that we have this reaction that people are more nervous and more cautious when times have gotten safer. I think one of the important things to remember is that with helicopter parents, with people who call the cops instead of talking to the child or talking to the parents about their concerns, is many of them have an evangelical need to not only care for their own children, but to care for yours as well. So if they see a child that that is walking around or doing something that they disapprove of, they think it's that they're doing a community service by not only calling the authorities, but by discouraging this. And this is really going to discourage parents. It's so sad. I'm with all the panelists and having a tremendous amount of sympathy for what Danielle and her family is going through. But this, unfortunately, I think this is really going to scare people away from the very healthy activity of letting your kids having more independence.
We have Rona Berry Moore, and at the same time, if the kids get snatched while playing at the park, society will be more than ready to throw the parents under the bus. Danielle, this is the kind of boogeyman fear, right? Where it's like the worst case scenario, it very well could happen to you. But here's the thing. Why does that what does that have to do with you as a parent? I look at this in the same way, breast versus bottle, cry it out versus coddling. Why has it become helicopter parenting versus free range parenting?
That's exactly it. I mean, I think one of the most important things is that parents really know their kids best, and the parents are the ones who have to decide. And I don't want this to turn into some sort of judgment, another way that moms and dads, aren't doing it right. A lot of this is intuitive to me, at least, and that's why I'm following this free range parenting. And I want to just echo what the previous speaker was saying, that it's this evangelical, this is the way I do it, and this is the way you should do it too. I don't feel that way. If parents don't feel comfortable, then they shouldn't do it.
All right, I love it. Danielle, Julie, Lisa, Samantha, thank you. We have to continue this conversation another day. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your knowledge and your tweeting about this segment. Thank you so much for being here, and thank all of you for watching. Keep on watching and commenting, because the conversation always continues here at HuffPost Live.